All right, if you only follow the One Punch Man manga and you don't want to be spoiled about what's going to happen in the future of the story, I suggest you check out now. Okay, I know it's been a long time, guys, but it's finally here because we're talking about Boros versus Awakened Garou, baby. This is like the match of matches. This is the main event of WrestleMania, pretty much. But also, this is super contentious. Maybe the most contentious matchup in all of the One Punch Man community, possibly. And this is like pretty much straight up 50-50, like a pick 'em matchup. It is ultimately up for you to decide. So keep that in mind because your opinion is probably going to differ from mine. Another caveat here is that we're going off of two different continuities to compare these two characters. So just keep that in mind as well, because we're going to be comparing manga Boros to webcomic Awakened Garou, and that is because Awakened Garou has not reached the manga yet, obviously. Maybe in a year he will, I don't know. And let me also put it out there that when Awakened Garou is, fully completes his run in the manga, I will make a rematch video to this, like a round 2, because obviously, we're going to have to take another look at Boros versus Garou at that point. So just keep that in mind. This is just round 1. There will be another video in like a year and a half or something like that. But anyway, you guys definitely want me to take a look at manga Boros instead of webcomic Boros, right? Because, what manga Boros is the one that we've all come to know and love. But he is way more impressive than webcomic Boros. Now, webcomic Boros, he still has like the same type of durability and all that good stuff. He's just a really condensed version of what we see in the manga. Because it is extremely extrapolated in the manga, the Boros in there, and then the anime takes it even further than that. So I'm going to be, using the manga version because that's what we want to see going against Awakened Garou here. But it's kind of putting Awakened Garou at a handicap at the same time because he is going to be restricted by the webcomics continuity as well as like the art style and the feats within it and everything. So I'm going to keep this matchup, as within their own continuities as much as I can. So when I'm drawing from like pre-Awakened Garou feats, I'm just going to go with the webcomic. And when I'm comparing stuff with Boros, within his own continuity, the manga, it's going to stay there as well. Try to do this as best as I can to keep it, as fair as we can. Like I said, Awakened Garou is pretty much, you're still at a handicap here. All right, so now let's get into the most important bit of information regarding this matchup, because thankfully, the creator, one himself, actually made a comment on this exact fight, because he said that Garou or Boros, who would win? Before, Boros was definitely the stronger one, but Garou is now a near-perfect monster. I don't really know. A good matchup. I do believe Garou is stronger in close combat, where things like punches and kicks can generally be avoided. So that's awesome. When he says, Boros was definitely the stronger one before, I think he's referring to like peak Red Garou pretty much, like the Garou that went against Darkshine and Golden S. That, without a doubt, is true. Boros is definitely stronger than that version of Garou. But then he says, but Garou is now a near-perfect monster. So now he's talking about Awakened Garou, meaning that, in my opinion, the previous statement is no longer valid. Like, they're kind of like on the same level at this point, more or less. Same tier is a better way of putting it. And then he says, I don't really know a good matchup. So that right there, I think, is going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, about how this is like a super subjective matchup, guys. Like, not even the creator has like, a clear-cut, quick answer that comes to his mind that could be objective or anything like that. It's even up in the air for him. And of course, he acknowledges that it's a good matchup because it is. It's extremely competitive. However, he goes on to say, I do believe Garou is stronger in close combat where things like punches and kicks can generally be avoided. And then that's where that whole thing ends. It's just a thing praising Garou and not praising Boros. So that's interesting. But this is also true. Because, one said it, of course it's true. But I'm just saying it's like I see why this is true. Because Garou, of course, is stronger in close combat where things like punches and kicks can generally be avoided, which also means that I think one is confirming here that Garou would definitely be able to avoid the strikes of Boros in, like, a close exchange. And also, Boros is not the skilled martial artist that Garou is. Not even close. Boros is just like a crazy blitzing athletic type. Like, if you'll notice, Boros like never blocks when he's fighting Saitama. He never guards, never dodges, nothing like that. Just straight at you, berserker, kill or be killed. It's awesome. And that's perfect for Garou, really, because that's where he excels, is going against these type of individuals. But again, he's never dealt with somebody quite on the level of Boros, which is going into the whole narrative that Saitama presented him with, where it's like, no matter how skilled you are, if you are just so overwhelmingly powerful, you can just overcome pretty much anything. And I'm not saying that's what would happen with Boros here, but I'm saying that he's pushing that boundary. So with that being said, let's just get straight into the battle, and we're going, immediately to the peak of their powers. We're going to have Meteoric Burst Boros here going against Abandonment Awakened Garou. That, in my opinion, is their two peaks. You might think that, like, what Garou does at the end of his fight against Saitama is his peak, but it is not. I'll talk about that at the end of the video, so just wait until then. But for now, Abandonment Awakened Garou versus Meteoric Burst Boros. This is the fight. Now, how fast is Meteoric Burst Boros exactly? It's hard to say. Both of these guys have already established that they're pretty much faster than Flashy Flash. So we're just dealing with like the highest percentile. And it's going to come down to like a battle of inches. But it's like one way to compare these, I guess, the speed of these two is with like Saitama's reactions, like how shocked he is. So when like Meteoric Burst Boros launches off the ground at Saitama initially, like Saitama is pretty much shocked by the level of speed that he's showing here. And that's the best way I can say it. I mean, look at it for yourself. He's like, oh my God, he is so fast. So that's how fast Meteoric Burst Boros is. Way faster than Flashy Flash, because he obviously doesn't give that the reaction to the Flashy Slash. Something that made time look like it was stopping. So yeah, he's that fast, okay? Now, thankfully, Saitama also kind of gives this reaction to Awakened Garou as well. Now, it's not in the same exact context as to where, like, Boros was sprinting off the ground. But Awakened Garou is, like, evading Saitama's strikes here, like what I was just talking about. Like, after he does the abandonment, like, Saitama's, like, can't really land anything on him. It's super impressive, and he's giving him a similar reaction of, like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. He's, like, shocked. Now, it's Saitama after all, so, take it for a grain of salt. But I think comparing these two is still putting them in the same kind of tier of speed as to where maybe Meteoric Burst Boros is overall faster than Awakened Garou, like movement and everything. But I think Awakened Garou, after using the abandonment, is fast enough to still evade Meteoric Burst Boros' strikes and counter them and everything, despite maybe being a little slower than him. So now let's get into like when strikes start getting landed on each other, because I do think, Meteoric Burst Boros can eventually hit Awakened Garou. I mean, why not? But I'll get more into that later on. But we're just basically going to go over their, comparing their strength here, because Awakened Garou is obviously going to be hitting Meteoric Burst Boros. We established he does not block, so he's going to be taking a lot of shots here. But Awakened Garou, on the other hand, will be taking some as well. It will not be a perfect fight for him, in my opinion, when we're dealing with the speed and the athleticism of Meteoric Burst Boros. But anyway, this is where the handicap is going to come into play big time. The one that I was talking about at the beginning between the webcomic and the manga, because the strength difference between them is huge. Meteoric Burst Boros is so much stronger than Garou, in my opinion, that like this is going to be the deciding factor in the matchup. Now, this also brings me to the other huge contentious point of this matchup that really makes it difficult to analyze, more so than it already was, and that is Awakened Garou is holding back against Saitama, and Saitama is holding back against Awakened Garou, meaning that we'll never know the full strength of Awakened Garou, and we'll never know his full durability, because we'll never see him take the same kind of punch that Boros took from Saitama, which obviously had killing intent behind it. And as for, with his strength, he never gives Saitama a blow with lethal intent behind it either, or even just full power, we can assume, or I don't know, it's never implied that he does, so we'll never truly know. But if we're strictly just comparing them landing shots on Saitama, there is a huge difference between them. Like, Boros is like leveling Saitama here, sending him all over the place. Even before Meteoric Burst Boros, he was leveling him, and now his strength has just gone so high. Like, just like seeing what his punch does, like from a bird's eye view, like the level of damage that it has and the widespread effect of it, it's similar to like when he was firing off one of his energy blasts when he was like in his released form. I mean, it's not the same, but it's like similar. And if we're comparing that to the city, just like we did with the energy blast, he's just one of his punches is like leveling like a portion of a city. Like, it's crazy how powerful that is. And maybe Awakened Garou could do that in theory, but he never shows any kind of strength like this against Saitama. Also, going to the moon kick, Meteoric Burst Boros kicked Saitama to the friggin' moon. Now, that means that he's strong enough to kick beings off the planet, meaning that, in theory, he could kick Awakened Garou off the planet. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed he would, but it definitely is something to think about in this matchup. How would Awakened Garou deal with that? I don't know. Could he come back to the planet? Maybe, maybe not, but Awakened Garou has not shown any kind of ability to be knocking beings off the planet. I mean, maybe he could, and it's like, it's too bad because it's like I said, handicap from the webcomic. Most likely, Murata does things way more extreme than one. But comparing this, I mean, it's just, in my opinion, fair to say that Meteoric Burst Boros is way more physically powerful than Awakened Garou, and Awakened Garou, the level of physical strength that he's showing here is definitely above Dragon and very impressive, but it might not be enough to take down Meteoric Burst Boros for good, because we're just going to come to their durabilities here, because this is going to be the deciding factor, like who can take whose shots. Now, Meteoric Burst Boros takes, I don't know, probably the best punch we've seen anyone so far take from Saitama. Like, when he gets hit by him, like towards the end of their fight, and he just gets sent back a couple feet and then keeps going. Like, in the current meta of One Punch Man, that's, I guess, as impressive as you can get. So it's like, replace that with Awakened Garou. Now, Awakened Garou is going to need to replicate a strike as powerful as that to get that kind of reaction out of Meteoric Burst Boros. So now, do you think that Awakened Garou can replicate the power of what we can assume to be a normal punch from Saitama here, maybe? Maybe he can. Maybe he can't, but that still means that he needs to go above and beyond that. He needs to do something even stronger than that. So then when we go to something stronger than that, we see the consecutive normal punches. Okay, so Saitama doing that, obviously, you know, it's pretty much the strongest thing ever. It reduces Meteoric Burst Boros to mush. But that's when his crazy regeneration ability kicks in and he comes back to normal. So, can the God Slayer instant attack, pretty much, you know, Awakened Garou's ultimate attack, can that reduce Boros to mush here? Meaning that, is the God Slayer instant attack as powerful as Saitama's consecutive normal punches? I don't know. I would say that it's probably not fair to say it's that strong. I would say that it's definitely stronger than what pretty much maybe any S-class hero could do outside of Blast, and it's on the level of above Dragon, but man, to say that the instant attack is as powerful as the consecutive normal punches is might be too much of a leap at this point, just in my opinion. And it's looking like that's the type of power that you're going to need to be able to take out Boros here. Now, going to Awakened Garou, it brings us back to Saitama holding back against him. And like I said, he never gives him a true like punch with killing intent like he gave to Boros. So all of the punches that Awakened Garou takes from Saitama are, I guess we could say, just not as impressive as the one that Meteoric Burst Boros or just Release Boros are taking. So, does that mean that Awakened Garou's durability, it's really not going to be able to stand up to somebody like Meteoric Burst Boros that long? I think he could definitely take a few shots from Meteoric Burst Boros. Why not? But man, how many? Because obviously he can keep going. Garou has like crazy endurance, like some of the highest endurance we'll ever see in the series probably, but he can be defeated. Like, you can just put Garou down for good. It's not like he's unbeatable. Like, you can stop him before he accelerates his growth mechanism. And I'm going to talk about that at the end. Don't worry, you know, the monster stuff that he does against Saitama towards the end of their fight. But before I wrap up my initial, like, you know, first level decision on this fight, let me just take a look at Boros' energy blast as well, because I know you guys probably want me to look at that as well. It's never really shown that meteoric burst Boros can do this. Like, the only kind of energy projection he does is the collapsing star roaring cannon. And we'll talk about that too, don't worry. But even if he does that, like just the regular released Boros energy blast that, we see that he does to Saitama, in either form, I think that Awakened Garou can probably take it. I mean, why not? He was able to tank Rover's blasts in the webcomic, like when he was Red Garou, and he probably did it even more impressively than he did in the manga, honestly. I mean, tanking those blasts and then defeating Rover. Like, he defeats Rover in the webcomic, not in the manga. So it's actually, his durability might be working out a little better for him in this regard, taking like blasts like that. So I don't think that would be too much of a problem in this matchup. And also, I don't think Boros would maybe use it too much, because he'd see that Garou was a speedster and probably evade those pretty easily. So that being said, and with everything else I said about the power difference and everything, I think Meteoric Burst Boros would defeat Awakened Garou, even using the abandonment. Now, I do think that he needs to become a Meteoric Burst Boros to defeat him, for sure. And it's going to be competitive, and Garou's going to evade his strikes and everything, but it's eventually going to get to the point of where Awakened Garou is not going to be strong enough to put a Meteoric Burst Boros down. Like, his durability is just going to be that good enough to, like, be able to hang with him long enough to where where Awakened Garou is not going to be able to absorb the same amount of damage that Meteoric Burst Boros is. Because remember, he's a Juggernaut, he's a Blitzer, he's just going to keep coming at you, he's not going to block, he's not going to stop. While, Awakened Garou is like picking his shots, evading him, countering him. I just think that this is not going to work out for him. While it typically would, in previous instances and previous opponents we've seen, but just I think Meteoric Burst Boros is just too much. So now we're going to go into overtime at this point, because remember, there's two things that I still got to touch on. So at the end of Garou's fight with Saitama, his growth mechanism kicks in, the ability where he becomes stronger to match his opponent so he can overcome them. And we've seen him do this multiple times throughout the series, against Darkshine, Tank Top Master. And considering that Meteoric Burst Boros, like I said, is going to be pushing him to the point of where he's probably going to be defeating him, then no doubt this ability is going to kick in against Meteoric Burst Boros. I mean, why not? So once Garou starts to further evolve, or whatever's going on with him, it's hard to say how much stronger he's becoming at this point, because we don't really get to see too many feats from him. We definitely don't get to see his speed. We kind of get to see his power, I guess, but it's ambiguous. But his durability may be improved, maybe not. Now, Garou himself in this form says, "I still can't reach you," talking about Saitama, "even with this. Unbelievable." So I guess that's him acknowledging that he's definitely stronger than what he was previously. Now, his strength, how much stronger is he at this point? I don't know. Durability, Saitama's holding back. It's hard to say, because he does hit him here, and he doesn't get sent flying back like he was previously. This is similar to what Meteoric Burst Boros was taking, but the whole holding back thing kind of muddles it, and it's hard to say for sure. And like I said, we don't see his speed at all, so we don't know what it's like. And then, of course, he further evolves after this. He gets his arm head-butted off, serious head-butted, so he's taking a serious move there, but also Saitama holding back. Still impressive nonetheless, and then he goes to the winged mode. And then we don't really get to see what he's capable of at that point, but we can assume that he's, much more powerful than he was beforehand. But what we can see here is that as Garou starts to go down this route of power increasement and more transformations, he's sacrificing his intelligence and skill for power, because by the time he becomes like the winged monster, he's just speaking in like 2-word sentences. So we can assume that once he starts transforming like this, he no longer has his skills and the intelligence and the wits and the cognizance that he did beforehand, possibly, right? So therefore, he's losing the entire edge that he had over Boros. So this is going to be even worse for him. So if he starts like forcefully evolving like this against Boros towards the end of their fight, he's just going to start becoming like a huge punching bag for Boros, in my opinion. Now, as for the collapsing star roaring cannon, this is another thing that gets brought up all the time in this matchup. People just say, well, Boros is going to use the collapsing star roaring cannon and he'll win. Or the other side will be he'll use it and then Garou will tank it or whatever. And that's fine. But I'm just going to say that, like, I don't think that would be a factor in this fight at all. Because we have to remember that, like, the collapsing star roaring cannon is Boros releasing all of his energy. It is like his trump card. It is his final thing to do. He's only going to use this if he has, like, an absolute reason to. It's either use the collapsing star roaring cannon or you lose and or die. And so far, you know, I've established that he's probably not going to be pushed to that point against Garou. And even if he was, okay, let's just say hypothetically he uses the collapsing star roaring cannon on him, what's going to happen? Well, either Garou can tank it, or he doesn't, or he barely survives it. Either way, the Earth is being destroyed, right? I mean, unless he somehow shoots him at an angle, like Endeavor did to the High Nomu and shoots him into the sky, Boros ain't going to do that. Boros is going to shoot at the Earth too. So even if Garou does survive this, the Earth's gone, and then what? Is he going to survive in space? Maybe, maybe not. And then what's going on with Boros? Can Boros still fight after he's released all of his energy? It's like, I just think this is a moot point, honestly. It doesn't matter. We should just basically mainly look at their other attributes coming into this, aside from the collapsing star roaring cannon. But yeah, that's it for Boros versus Awakened Garou, everyone. I think Awakened Garou would lose to Meteoric Burst Boros. He's just a little too much. But remember, you know, we're going to wait for Awakened Garou's debut and then completion in the manga. And then we'll come back to this matchup in a rematch video. And I think Awakened Garou will probably win the rematch, knowing Murata. But let me know what you think about this in the comments. Please try to keep it civilized, guys. I know the comment section is going to be brutal for this one, but I don't know. Just let's try to make the community just a little cleaner. But if you like the video, if it entertains you, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A. If you haven't already, please subscribe as well, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.